The sun hung low over the frontier settlement, turning the dust in the air into a burning haze as the cowboy guided his wagon toward the trading post. His two daughters sat quietly beside him, their small hands folded in their laps, their eyes carrying a sadness far heavier than their years. Since their mother's death, silence had become their constant companion. No songs in the morning, no gentle voice at night, only the creak of wood and the whistle of the wind across the plains. Near the post, a crowd had gathered, voices rough and curious. The wagon slowed. At the center stood an Apache woman, her wrists bound in cold iron chains, her clothes torn and stained from days of hardship. She stood upright despite the weight of captivity, her dark eyes calm but wounded, revealing a strength shaped by suffering. People whispered about her as if she were an object, something to be traded, something without a past or a soul. The girls stared at her, unable to look away. Something deep inside them stirred, a memory of warmth, of gentle hands brushing their hair, of a presence that made the world feel safe. When the woman stumbled slightly, pushed forward for inspection, the younger girl slid down from the wagon before her father could stop her. She ran through the dust and reached out, steadying the woman's arm without fear. The chains clinked softly, and the woman looked down, startled by the kindness. "Pa," the child said, her voice trembling but sure. "We need a mother." The words struck the cowboy like a blow to the chest. He saw tears shining in his older daughter's eyes as she climbed down too, standing beside her sister. "She looks brave," she whispered. "Mama was brave like that." The cowboy looked at the Apache woman again, not as a captive, but as a human being. She met his gaze without begging, without resentment, only a quiet dignity that demanded respect. In that moment, he understood his daughter's ache mirrored his own, even if he had buried it under responsibility and grief. Without another word, he reached for his coin pouch. The trader protested, confused and annoyed, but money spoke louder than questions. The chains were unlocked and fell away from the woman's wrists, leaving raw marks behind. The crowd dispersed, disappointed that there would be no spectacle. As the woman stood free, uncertain of what awaited her next, the girls took her hands, warm and trusting. She hesitated, then allowed herself to breathe. For the first time in a long while, hope flickered in her chest, fragile but real. As she followed them toward a future none of them yet understood. The ranch house appeared, small against the endless stretch of land. As the wagon rolled to a stop, its weathered boards holding memories of laughter that had long since faded, the Apache woman stepped down carefully, as if the ground itself might reject her. Freedom still felt unreal, like something that could be taken back with a single shout. The cowboy unlocked the door and stood aside, offering her entry without command or expectation. It was a quiet gesture, but it spoke louder than words. Inside, the air carried the scent of old wood and loneliness. The woman noticed the signs of a life interrupted, a woman's shawl folded neatly on a chair, a cracked mirror above the wash basin, small boots lined by the door. The cowboy avoided her eyes as he showed her a place to sit, set a cup of water before her, and handed her clean clothes. He did not ask questions. He did not give orders. He simply gave space, unsure how to act around someone who had arrived in his life through such strange and painful circumstances. The children filled that space with ease. They chattered softly, pointing out the kitchen, the garden, the chickens in the yard. When words failed, they used laughter, gestures, and smiles. The Apache woman listened, responding with nods and gentle expressions, slowly letting her guard down. That evening, she helped prepare the meal, moving around the kitchen as if guided by instinct. She added herbs she carried hidden in her pouch, and the simple food tasted richer than it had in months. The cowboy noticed, though he said nothing. As night settled, the wind howled across the plains, rattling the windows. The girls woke from restless dreams, calling out for the mother they had lost. Without hesitation, the Apache woman went to them, sitting beside their beds, humming a low, soothing melody from her people. The sound wrapped around the room like a blanket, easing their fears. The cowboy watched from the doorway, struck by how naturally she offered comfort, as if that role had been waiting for her. Days passed, and routines began to form. She mended clothes, tended the garden, and taught the girls small skills: how to braid leather, how to listen for changes in the wind, how to be patient. In return, they taught her their language, their games, their laughter. Yet the scars on her wrists remained, and sudden noises still made her flinch. The cowboy saw this and understood that freedom was not something granted in a moment. One evening, as the sun dipped low, he spoke her name carefully, asking it with respect. She answered, surprised but grateful. In that simple exchange, the distance between them lessened. She was no longer a stranger in his home. She was becoming part of it, and slowly so was he. The morning arrived with an uneasy stillness, the kind that warned of trouble long before it showed its face. The Apache woman sensed it first, her body tightening as if the land itself had whispered a warning. By midday, dust rose on the horizon, carrying with it the figures of men riding hard toward the ranch. The girls noticed too, their laughter fading as fear crept back into their eyes. Memories of chains and shouting surged through the woman's mind, but she forced herself to stand tall. The men dismounted roughly, their expressions hard and familiar. They claimed the woman belonged to the trading post, that she had been taken unlawfully, that a mistake needed correcting. Their words were sharp, filled with entitlement rather than truth. The cowboy stepped out onto the porch, rifle resting against his shoulder, his stance calm but unyielding. He spoke of payment, of legal exchange, but more than that, he spoke of choice. His voice did not rise, yet it carried authority born of conviction. The girls moved without thinking, standing in front of the woman, clutching her hands as if their small bodies could shield her. One of them lifted her chin and said she was their mother now, that no one had the right to take her away. The words echoed across the yard, stronger than any threat. The men laughed at first, but the sound faded when they saw the determination in the children's faces and the readiness in the cowboy's grip. The Apache woman felt something break free inside her. She stepped forward, gently guiding the girls aside, and faced the men herself. Her voice, steady and clear, carried the weight of all she had endured. She said she would not return to chains, not to silence, not to a life where her will meant nothing. She spoke of dignity, of the right to choose one's own path. The land seemed to hold its breath as she finished. Perhaps it was the unity before them, or the realization that this fight would cost more than it was worth. But the men eventually mounted their horses and rode away, their dust swallowed by the open plains. Silence returned, heavy but relieved. The cowboy lowered his rifle, his hands trembling slightly as the danger passed. That evening, beneath a sky painted with stars, the woman took the last fragments of her broken shackles and buried them far from the house. The girls watched, smiling, as if witnessing a sacred ceremony. The cowboy understood then that family was not formed by blood alone, but by courage, protection, and love freely given. In that place, under the vast and forgiving sky, the Apache woman was no longer defined by chains. She was home,